Di2 shifting system. So this was probably the biggest challenge we had when we were developing the new system. We knew that we were going to make a race-ready disc brake system. And to make it a race-ready disc brake system, it had to have basically the same ergonomics as the standard Di2 lever. Like we were talking about, the pro teams, they're all using Di2. And if they want to start using disc system, they wanted to have the exact same ergonomics. They wanted to be able to go from bike to bike, rim brake to disc brake, and have the exact same feel. They didn't want to have to spend a day, 2 days relearning, you know, kind of getting their hand comfortable with that shape. And we've done a really good job with our current product. It's really nice, but it's not the same ergonomics when you go from a Di2 hydraulic system to a Di2 rim brake system. So that was the challenge. And if you look at the new levers, you look at the new bike, the sample bike we have up here, they've done an amazing job. When you line up these two systems, they are absolutely identical. In fact, when we brought our first prototype bike to the office, one of the guys thought they shipped the wrong bike because he looked at it and he said, oh, this one just has Di2 levers. And we're like, no, this is a disc brake bike. But you look at it, it absolutely has the same ergonomics. And one of the really cool things that we've done with the system, and you know, did everybody know that there were buttons in the Durace Di2 levers? See, that was kind of a happy accident originally. Originally, we were supposed to have a computer of our own, and it was going to be activated by those buttons. But turns out those buttons were still active. We have since added some connectivity through dFly, being able to update with firmware. And on the current system, you can connect with like a Garmin, and you can toggle through pages on your computer. You can stop and start your computer. But with the new system, those will also become shifters. So you're going to have an additional set of shifters on there. You're going to be able to pick back and forth whether or not you want that to be a shifter. Do you want to be able to control your Garmin? And then the other really cool thing that we've done, we took feedback from riders, and this was riders in cold places that said, you know what, the shifting's a little bit vague when I have big, heavy gloves on with my Di2 levers. I know we never experienced that out here, but anybody that lives anywhere else other than Southern California, when you wear heavier gloves, it does get a little vague in the shifting feel. So you have this completely redesigned click feel. It's really nice. So all the buttons are going to have that same really kind of tactile feedback on the shift button. So every time you shift, you're going to know you shifted a Di2 button. And it's very consistent between the different levers as well. So those are the big cool things that are happening. You've got this amazing engineering feat in building a hydraulic system that feels and looks exactly like the rim brake version. So that you can look at the two of them. They almost look identical. And like I said, that was an important part. And that's kind of one of the emotional hurdles that I think a lot of roadies need to get over, is that it needs to look like a race bike. And I think that's what you see with the new Durace Di2 system with hydraulic, is it looks cool. It looks sexy. It looks like a race bike. It looks like it's fast. The other really cool change that we made to Di2 overall is you're going to get more customization. So as an example, we were able to add multi-shift to existing systems. So it was just a firmware update. But with the multi-shift, you had to put it on every single button. You know, it was on or off on every single button. With the new system, with the new with a firmware update, all you'll need to do is go through and you can program every single button to do what you want it to do. So a lot of guys don't like their sprinter buttons, their sprinter shifters, to have multi-shift because they're afraid they're gonna bump it in a sprint and get more than one gear. So you'll be able to pick and choose. Okay, I want my sprinter shifters to just shift one time. I want the regular shifters to be able to do multi-shift. You know, I want the buttons across the top to just shift one time. So that's going to be another piece of the customization that you'll see from the system.
Lever compatibility with current systems?
Absolutely. So one of the beautiful things about the electronic system is there's complete compatibility back and forth between the shifters. There's no incompatibilities at all. The only time you ever get into incompatibilities with Di2 is when you're mixing the speeds, the 10 speed and the 11 speed. So absolutely, you could take the new Di2 levers and use it on an existing bike. But all that the changes we were talking about, that will be retrofittable back to an existing bike. So when when we get into new software going forward, it'll just be a firmware update for a consumer with an existing bike, and they'll be able to do that customization with their shift buttons. Speaking of more customization, the other thing we looked at for triathlon bikes and TT bikes is how do we make that cockpit area much more aerodynamic? And we looked at, with having multiple buttons on the system, we could only make it so small. So we decided that we were going to go to a single button design on the ST levers. To do that, we needed to incorporate synchro shifting. Is everybody familiar with synchro shifting from the mountain bike side? So the mountain bike guys love this. Okay, another piece of technology you're stealing from the mountain bike guys. But it actually plays out really, really well, especially for triathletes. So it makes it possible for us to make a much sleeker system, much sleeker lever. It's much more aerodynamic, looks a lot cleaner on tri-bars, and you now have a single button on either side. So with synchro shift, you have standard, we're going to actually do two types of synchro shift. So we're going to have the standard one that you would see on your mountain bike system, where you push one set of buttons to go inward, you push the other set of buttons to go outward, and the system will pick the path, or actually you can pick the path. Did you guys know that you can set up the mapping on the computer for your system? You'll be able to do the exact same thing here. So what that means is you can tell the system, like if you want to stay in the big chain ring all the way up to the biggest cog in the back, you can do that. If you want it to shift earlier in the back, you can totally customize that for yourself. So that's kind of like what we call full synchro, which is the identical to the mountain bike system. We're also offering for roadies semi-synchro. And what that is, when you manually shift your front derailleur, there's going to be a correction shift in the back that'll happen automatically. So, and that's another one where you can program it depending on what kind of gear ratios you're using. You may only want to drop one cog, you may want to drop 3 cogs, depending on what kind of gears you're running.
Is it going to have the same, I guess, air or cross-chain protection that exists in the mountain systems right now, where if you try to go into, say, a 1x8 gear, it'll restrict you, or if you're in the large ring and trying to drop into small ring, like it'll make shifts in the rear first before it allows you to drop in? And this is non-synchro, this is just, manual control.
No, that's a capacity issue with the rear derailleur in the mountain bike system. You won't have that same constraint on the roadside.
Similar to the mountain bike, so you're going to have to run a display unit to do synchro?
No. So you don't have to run a display unit, though. We will be working into the future on some possible connectivity notifications through third-party computers. So that's something hopefully in the future we'll be able to talk more about.
Will you be able to use the synchro shifting with the previous 11-speed systems?
So the question is, can you use this on 11-speed current? Yes, absolutely. The one caveat to that is there is a new battery. And the only reason you need the new battery is it has a new chip in it that has more capacity. So with the current batteries, we've run out of space. There's no more memory in there to add more features. So this new battery, which will be shipping, I believe, in the next month or so, will be required to get the update. For the consumer, once you have the new battery, all they'll need to do is a firmware update. And the firmware update is going to be probably sometime in late fall, prior to Di2 shipping. So actually, current bikes will be able to get this, could potentially get this system before new Di2 bikes get it.